Okay, it looks like
we are.
No, we have to
So
stop
now
it. No,
no,
this is not good because it's taking us the wrong way. So I have to stop. I have to stop
You
this.
disabled it. Okay.
I have to stop it. How can I? No, I don't want to. Okay, maybe we. I don't know.
Looks beautiful. So,
Michael, I don't know what's going on. We're having one of those days. Okay, I think we're live, and I think we're live.
okay, so there. Hi, everybody. We're just going mad here because I'm late. I lost track of the time. I'm just such a terrible person.
No, you're not a terrible person. Don't do that.
So if you're all listening in on our little private conversation,
we're not private anymore.
No. Okay.
All right. I really do need a drink now.
Tough. Too bad.
Tough titty, as we used to say.
I'm so sorry.
All right. So we had a little time issue. We're here now. So what, do you know what? This was the exact same time we got on Monday. In North Carolina. We were 14 minutes late on Monday and we're 14 minutes late today, but who cares? We're here now.
Yes, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault, folks.
No, don't do that. We're all good. Okay, so Michael, what have you been doing for the last 2 days since I saw you last?
I'm in jet lag today. I was flying back from North Carolina yesterday. So
wow.
Well,
thank you so much.
Excuse anyway.
Well, thank you so much for being willing and for doing this. I'm really grateful.
I feel like I know you. It's my pleasure.
I do. It was, even though we were having so many challenges the other day, it was so lovely. And
thank God not today.
No.
Being facetious.
maybe it's our energy. Maybe we're just too wild.
Too much good energy.
We're too much. So how was the trip? How was it flying? Because I read a thing this morning in the New York Times that they're about to consider doing mask mandates again in a third of the country because the COVID's crazy again. What was it like for you flying?
Well, we all wore masks.
Okay.
But
that's not the law anymore, though.
No, and people getting on, people didn't, but most of us wore them for most of the trip anyway. It's ridiculous because you wear the mask, then you take it off to drink and eat or whatever you're doing. I was on 2 flights, so neither one served food, so I didn't have to worry. But, I suppose it helped somewhat to keep it all down, COVID. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if the masks, stuff can get into the mask. I read somewhere that the germs can get in from the side of the mask and they gather around. So anyway, wear your masks, folks. But
you weren't a nervous traveler or anything.
I used to be. I'm not anymore. No.
So how was it for
about
you?
COVID? No, I wasn't.
How were you at the beginning? Like, what did you? I want to talk about you and your husband because you have a successful, lovely, happy marriage, which is fabulous. Yeah. How did you guys cope? How did you entertain yourselves when we were in lockdown and stuff?
I think we led a pretty normal life. I mean, we still
did you?
went to movies. We just wore masks and pretty normal. Wow. No parties, but we're not partiers anyway. We don't party particularly. I mean, we have friends and we have dinner occasionally, but I've been lucky. We haven't been sick. We both got shots. So far, so good. And it's just been I never thought I would live to be in a pandemic. Did you? I mean, that was something that happened years ago with the Asian flu and all that stuff.
It's shocking. It's shocking. And when they told us we were going to be locked down for 2 weeks, I was like, what do you mean? I can't stay home for 2 weeks. And then I was home for 2 years and 2 months. It's like, wait a minute. How did that happen? But you had each other. So that's pretty wonderful. How did you meet? And at what stage in your career did you guys meet?
Well, we've been together now 33 years. We've been married 31.
Fantastic.
So we met at a party that you know about. And actually it was a 12-step program. And
I love
that's how we met. And he kind of sidled up and he knew my friend, my best friend, and I was in town in LA visiting. I was living in New York at the time, and he kind of sidled up and asked for my phone number. And I'd been alone for a while, and I said, give it to him.
I
And
love
we've been together
that.
ever since. Yeah,
And do you think your relationship has benefited by the fact that you have recovery in your life? And
absolutely, absolutely, no question.
do you use that? I have a thing called the 12 Steps for Relationships, which I haven't read in a long time, and I should probably read again. But do you bring that into, do you fair fight? Do you
I
use
don't. He does. I don't feel
Oh.
right. I mean, but he's pretty good for the most part. But I can get him if I really try.
You can drag them down into the
Yeah, I mean, I can.
abyss.
Did you have a mean streak this wide sometimes? And I do. I mean, I go for the jugular, but when I feel cornered, but John is an amazing guy because he always comes in and sits down and says, all right, let's hash it out. And, he's never walked out. Back when we first met, he was still smoking. I was not, but we got into I'd come off an abusive marriage. And so we got into something. We were yelling at each other, and he started to leave. And I thought, there he is. He's walking out. And just another one. And he said, I'm going out on the patio to smoke a cigarette, and then I'm back for round 2. And I knew I'd met my match.
Today for me is 38 years since I quit smoking cigarettes.
Good for you.
And so, yeah, those were the days. But
I just loved it.
me too.
It's a terrible thing, but I loved it. I miss it.
For me, it was the hardest thing to quit
Yeah, me too.
of all the things that I've quit.
I'm still on sugar. I just had a Tootsie Pop.
I was going to ask you, how have you managed through your career, because you've maintained your girlish figure? How disciplined or how strict are you with yourself? And do you have like a regular diet that you follow, or what do you do?
Exercise.
I know you did. Do you still dance?
10 pounds over what I should be, but because I'm happier when I'm thinner, but I'm old now, and nobody cares. So it's hard for me. It's hard for me to really be that as diligent as I was when I was younger. And
were you strict with yourself? Did you?
I was always on a diet, it seemed.
I've always been on a diet.
Yeah, and it gets really boring. But now I eat pretty healthfully. I don't eat much breakfast. I eat a little bit, and I'll have a late lunch and an early dinner of salad usually, with everything in it, because I don't like cooked vegetables that much, but I put everything in a salad.
And will you let yourself have dessert?
Oh, yes. I just had a Tootsie Pop. I just had a Tootsie Pop.
And have you been healthy in your life?
I'm blessed with good health. I do think a lot of health is genes. I think if you're blessed with good genes, you can be I know a lot of very, very healthy eaters who just eat vegetables and chicken and fish, and as I did at one time. And the doctor said my hair was falling out, and I was weak, and I was eating so healthfully. And I went to the doctor, the nutritionist, and he said, you are eating really well, but not for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, you need red meat. And
wow. Are you a type O blood? Are you a blood type O?
Yes, I guess whatever that is. But
yes.
I tend toward anemia. I get anemic if I don't eat red meat.
This is my mother too. So what a lovely thing to have to be told to do.
Eat red meat. Well, at that time I didn't really want to, and now I don't eat that much, but I do. Meat and a salad.
So do you think, what would you tell me, what do you think is the secret of the longevity of your marriage? Because 31 years is pretty astounding. 33 years together, that's pretty special, especially in Hollywood, that whole lifestyle.
Well, John is a pretty stable guy.
Not in show business, or is he in show business?
He's a lawyer. He's an attorney. The LA attorney, they always call him in whenever, do a newspaper interview. married to the LA attorney. He's a stable man and a good man. And I recognized that when I first met him. I knew he was a good person. I could see in his eyes. He's got those really warm, kind eyes. And he wasn't my type.
What did that mean? What does that mean?
He didn't need to be rescued.
Oh.
You know what I mean? He didn't. I always tend to go to the man who's, or in the past, who's like, the head and the hands, and he needs a mommy or whatever. And John didn't need that. He didn't need anything. He just thought I was terrific, and I loved it. I loved it.
Did you have a good relationships with you? I know your father was a secret agent man. Did you have a good relationship with your parents? Did you come from a loving home?
I did, but they were complicated people. They weren't the Waltons, but they tried to be. Let's put it that they tried to be the Waltons. I mean, we lived on a 21-acre farm. It was beautiful, paradise for kids.
Wow.
People who had owned it before were horticulturalists. So there were pear trees and peach trees and cherry trees and grapevines and everything. It was just marvelous. And I milked 3 goats before I went to school in the morning and 3 goats at night before I went to bed, and fed the pigs. I did all of that because I was a little thief and I stole money from my dad.
Yeah, we talked about that. You and I have that in common. Yeah.
Candy. So anyway, I think he handled it well, don't you think?
I do think, and you also have a good work ethic as a result, probably. Were they screamers? Is that where you learned that kind of fighting? Did you have that kind of home?
No, they weren't. My mother, I mean, they were a very lively couple. Let's put it that way. But yeah, no, the dining room table would get tipped over occasionally. So it was interesting. And very interesting people would come out on the weekend from New York, people who wrote editors on Esquire. And
wow.
My parents knew a lot of very interesting people. So it was kind of an interesting childhood. I would sit on the steps and listen to them, and they were funny and witty and all of that, and a little nuts too, which was always good. And
well, they obviously had a sense of humor. They named you Michael,
did, which we always had good meals on the table. And we were, sometimes my 3rd grade teacher was a really good friend of mine. She became a very close friend. And she said, I really thought your parents were kind of crazy, but they were alive and very, they were good. I miss them. Yeah.
And were you close to your siblings? A lot of sisters and a brother.
Yeah, very close, especially my deceased sister, Gretel, who was 11 months younger than I am. We were very close. And all of them were close. We're it's amazing. We're a good family considering how screwed up we all are in our own ways. But none of us are serial killers or thieves, or, we're very respectable in many ways. And my parents were good.
Was alcoholism in your family? Was it?
We drank a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And did your siblings? Is that something that got passed down?
My deceased sister had been a drug addict for quite a while. She was a drug addict, hard drugs. I never did drugs, so. But in those days, in the 50s, and what my father was doing and all that, people drank. It was just, there was never a dinner party without a tray of, like a cocktail bar almost, with bottles and ice and glasses, and it was just part of the deal. It never was a big thing for us.
Cocktail hour was the thing ever in the 60s, in the 50s.
Started early and went late.
Yes. So the family. Okay, so I asked you on Monday about how you came to theater, and you were talking about boarding school and starting to perform there. But did you go on to study? Yeah, because you've done so much theater. Did you study with?
Oh, I did. I sure did. Oh, sorry about that. I did. I went to English boarding school for ballet, but the teacher came up to me and said, "Michael, you're not really a very good dancer. Why don't you think about becoming a special drama student?" So that's what they had a special drama department in this dance school. So I took dance, and mostly I specialized in the drama, but I had dance classes as well. And it was wonderful training, really was. It's English, so voice production, Shakespeare. We were doing that at 11 and 12 years of age. Here you have to wait till you go to college before you teach, And I remember coming back to high school and the teacher saying, brace yourself, kids. We're going to start doing some Shakespeare. And I thought, shame on you. It's Shakespeare's wonderful. But she was presenting it to the kids as if it was some horrible foreign language that they had to learn. And I thought
did that come naturally to you? Did you understand Shakespeare when you were studying Shakespeare?
Kind of, just on a visceral level, I guess. I got it, and I still do. It's not that hard, really. I mean, it's just it's just a more formalized way of speaking, but it's still all the emotions he's got. Brilliant, brilliant. I wonder who he really was. I mean, I wonder if there's so much speculation about whether Shakespeare was more than one person and whatever.
Have you played a favorite Shakespearean role?
I played Virgilia opposite Paul Scofield, and that was amazing because he's such an amazing actor. And but I wouldn't say I played the great female leads.
Is that something you'd still like to do?
I'm too old now. There are very few. There's Volumnia in Coriolanus, but there are very few parts except the nurse in Romeo and Juliet. I think I've outgrown it now. But as a young person, Shakespeare is it's like a fabulous meal. It's like a gourmet meal to do Shakespeare because of the language.
Are there roles that you still, and I know the roles get thinner and thinner as we get older, but is there anything that you haven't played that you'd still love to sink your teeth into? Something that's already been written? Because hopefully someone will write something for you in the future.
That'd be nice. What would they write? Nobody really knows. My husband says I have a mean spirit this big, so I guess knows how mean I can be.
Have you played nasty? Have you played nasty?
Yeah,
parts?
I played a really nasty grandmother in SVU, I think. Abusive grandma. I have, but and they're much more fun to play.
I was going to ask you, was it fun?
Much more fun. I don't know. You get to let it all out, and you get paid for it.
What's the grandmother that you're playing in Monster in the Jeffrey Dahmer story? What I know she's oblivious, but what would you say? What was she like?
She's very Midwestern, and what's in that bag, Jeffrey? Walling up body parts, Did
you use that accent?
That smell. And that's dead body, grandma. No, I guess denial is a powerful thing. It's a powerful defense mechanism, and she must have been in complete and total denial. I look at my grandson's living with us. You saw him. He's downstairs. I should get him up here just because he's so gorgeous.
Oh,
his heart is as gorgeous as his face. And if I suddenly discovered he was a serial killer, I'd kill myself. I can't imagine what that would be like for a normal. She was a perfectly normal person, and
seemingly
this little grandson that she loves so much has done the terrible things that Jeffrey Dahmer did to people.
Is he at all sympathetic in this?
I haven't seen I don't know the earlier episodes. I only know the ones I was in. But Evan Peters plays him, and he is the most likable human being you could ever want. And in our scene together, it was easy for me to love him as a grandma. He's there's something very open about his acting and who he is as a person. So yeah, I can see that you just don't want to believe anything like that about somebody you love. Awful. I think of people, mothers of murderers, and then the blame, the guilt you must feel. What did I do? How could I have done something so wrong? But Jeffrey Dahmer, have you ever seen the interviews with him?
I don't think I have.
He talks about, he said, something is wrong with my brain. So you wonder sometimes whether that is actually the truth. I don't know.
I'm going to go look those up because I'd like to see those before I watch I guess there's no yet air date for when we can see Monster.
September.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. I'm looking forward to it.
I don't know exactly when, but they've said no, definitely September. But I tried to find interviews with her, and there was video of her, but no, nothing where she was verbalizing anything that I could find anyway. Okay, you just disappeared. But he was interesting because he talked about what he did. As if you were talking about, and then I went to the grocery store and I got apples, but because they didn't have any pears. So I had to get apples and
wow.
Yeah. And just matter of fact, what do you want to know? I'll tell you everything you want to know.
Wow. That's really scary.
No, he wasn't dead, but there was no feeling of remorse, or it was like he was giving a report. Yeah.
So like a sociopath, is that what a sociopath is? Yeah.
Married a couple of those too, but never.
So let's talk about it. So you married the first time very young, Peter Donat. So
he was wonderful. He was not a sociopath. He was a dear man. Yeah.
And you were married a long time, and you worked together. You did theater together. Yeah.
We were sort of the Lunts of ACT.
So I want to ask you about that. So how was that? Because I was with men, and I found there was ego stuff was he supportive of you as an actress?
Yes, he was. I sort of came in on his coattails, really. ACT wanted him, so they took me. And then as I understudied and stuff. And then I became the leading lady. I thought it was wonderful. And he was never competitive with him. I respected and loved him, and he did me too. I was very young when we married, and I think I needed to grow up on my own. I tried so hard to be the perfect 50s wife that you would read about in the Ladies' Home Journal, which isn't really who I am. I am mean as a snake. And in some ways we had a very good marriage, and in other ways things went bad, and for both of us, really. But it was the 50s, and guys weren't as well behaved as they are now.
Oh God! Did you separate amicably, or was it a nightmare?
Well, it wasn't a nightmare, but I think it made him very sad, and me too. I mean, it was difficult. I didn't hate him, but I couldn't go on living the life that he was comfortable with. I couldn't do it. And I told him, I said, I'm going to die if we don't get counseling. And he did not want to get counseling. That's all. And that's his right, I guess. But he did not want to go to. And I would have learned a lot of things about myself that would have surprised me, because I was supposedly the good guy in the marriage. It's amazing how you learn sometimes later in life that you weren't such a good guy. You were kind of manipulative and all of that stuff. And I didn't know any of that. I thought he was the bad boy and I was the good, long-suffering wife. And I was wrong. I found out I was wrong.
How did you manage when you had your sons? You were doing theater. How did you manage to have a career and be a mother? And before the Waltons, which I know got complicated too, but how did you manage it when you were young, married with children and doing theater?
We had a wonderful woman. Well, first of all, Peter's brother helped out when we were in New York off Broadway. And I didn't work all the time. It was here and now. And now and then I'd get a part, usually because they wanted Peter, they'd take me along. And then when I was in LA with the Waltons, I had a woman named, in San Francisco, actually, when I was at ACT, she lived with us, and she was just one of those people that you're so lucky. She was an angel. She was a grandmother to the kids and a mother friend to me. She was both a friend and she loved us. She just loved us. She loved being with us. She loved the kids. She loved me. And what more could you ask for? I
Mm.
couldn't have done it without her. I couldn't have done any of it. And she came to LA when I got the Waltons. And
Okay. Okay. So that's my next question. So you were doing theater. Bill Ball you did not want to leave ACT to go to LA. You did not want to audition for the Waltons. You did because.
well, I came down to learn the freeways in case an audition came up or something. And my agent said, there's this part, they want a middle-aged woman with long red hair. And I said, well, I'm 32 with I had very short blonde hair.
Mhm.
And he said, well, I want you to go see about it anyway. So I did. And I remember seeing all these guys this long. I mean, Hollywood was sort of, the big deal. But there they all were at this table, all men. And I went in my best dress that I had and my hair pulled up. And one of the guys who happened to be Lee Rich, the producer, but he said, would you be willing to test? And I said, well, I thought that's what I was doing. He meant screen test.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, of course. And then the next thing I knew, I was in a studio. Somebody was jamming this hat on my head, the hat that was worn in the show.
Mhm.
And somebody handed me a dress and a thing to, like a suit or something that folded laundry. And my line was, John Boy, try this on. And then he comes out in a suit and I said, you look real good. And that was it. That was my test. So
Really?
I did not get the part based on my test. I got it. Honestly, I got it because a wonderful woman who was the head of casting at CBS had seen my work at ACT. And the story that I heard years later was she wrestled Fred Silverman to the ground.
Wow.
He fought for me. And that's before women's lib. And here's this woman who wasn't the prettiest woman in the world, very, very kind of ordinary looking, but a dynamo, and believed in me and had seen my work at ACT and really fought for me. And God bless her because it turned my life around.
And at the time, if I got this right, you were already not living with Peter and you were living with your sons. Were you living with your sons in a hotel?
No. We had a house. My grandmother, bless her heart, when she died, left me a little money, and I bought a house for us in Toronto. And when Peter and I split up, I sold the house, and we shared the money. Mm-hmm. And I had enough to get us to LA. I came down first, got the job. Mm-hmm. And then I rented a house with the kids and brought the kids down. And Peter would see them on the weekends and stuff because he was in San Francisco. So it was only an hour away by plane. Mm-hmm. But it was a big adventure and difficult at first.
How was it for Peter that you struck this career massive success?
It must have been very hard because I never cared. That was not my ambition, was to be a big star. Not that I'm a big star, but to be
are a big star.
But no, I'm not. I'm on television.
You're a 4-time Emmy winner. No, don't do that. And you're also a woman of the theater, a successful
woman of the theater. Yes, I'm proud of that. But no, he must have lost sleep over it a little bit because it's what he wanted so much. But he never ever made me feel that he was jealous or anything more than supportive. He was a real gentleman.
That's lovely. And he did an episode of the Waltons. How did that come to happen?
That was a little awkward. I asked for them to give him something. It was a little awkward. Yeah. I felt it had always been the other way around. I sort of took the back seat. Mm-hmm. And not that people were fawning over me or anything. It's just that I was at home on the set because I knew everybody, and Peter was the guest.
Right.
So it was, I felt upset for him, nervous for him. Mm-hmm. But he was fine. He was okay. But it was just me being protective.
I think there's a sister program that I'm also in about women like us who are sort of protective of the men and the wounded animals. You know about that other
rescuer.
Yeah, the rescuers. So how did your boys, how were they with the fact that mommy was gone a lot? Was that hard on them, or did
Yeah,
they?
it was. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sure it was. I mean, in a way, I'm grateful for the Waltons because I had weekends off. If I'd been still doing theater, I would have had to go places. I would have had to go on the road or whatever.
Right.
You're not so lucky that you're always just. I had gone to Bill Ball and said, "Am I coming back next season at ACT?" And he said, "I'll let you know." After
Wow.
3.5 years there. And
Wow.
so I thought I better get my ass down to LA and at least learn the freeways so that if an audition happens and I fly down, I won't arrive with sweat in my shoes. And so and it was just God's hand on my shoulder. Honestly, I believe that it was sheer luck.
Okay. Oh, I was going to just ask you that. Do you believe in luck, or do you believe in destiny? I'm a fatalist. I kind of believe that things are
I believe
meant
so.
to be.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was meant to be. And I really didn't earn it. I just showed up. And to any young actors, that's what you do in life, just in general. Show up for it.
Is that something you still do? Are you a person who says yes to things? Have you ever said no to something and regretted it?
Oh, I'm sure I have. I can't think of anything right now, but I'm sure I've turned down parts or something that I wish I had done.
Did you ever covet a part that you didn't get that you tried for?
No.
Oh, I love this hesitation. That means no. That's
Really.
Wow.
I mean, my career was never the most important thing in my life. It was something lucky that happened to me. And I enjoy it. I like working, especially now that I'm old. But when my kids were little, they were the most important thing to me. So it was often a sacrifice to go off and work when I had these beautiful children at home that I had to leave behind. So I remember once Peter and I were driving away, and my son little Chris running after the car crying. I mean, it was heart-rending. And so they paid a price. Sure they did. And I did too,
Have you sat down and had that conversation with them as adults?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, we've been in therapy. I mean, I got them into therapy once I had a little money, thank God for Waltons. And we've all had therapy and counseling together. And my boys they're not boys anymore. They're really good men, good husbands, loving fathers, loving sons to me. So I must have done something right. I've been singing song the last couple of days, that I must have done something right. And I find myself humming it lately. I think I had such a nice visit in Columbus with my middle son. Unfortunately, his wife is just gone through an operation, but it was so nice with him and with the grandkids and with Becky. And I thought, the golden years, they're pretty, I was going to swear, but I won't, but they're pretty.
You can swear. You can say.
Well, I'll say crappy instead of shitty, but.
Shitty is absolutely fine. I have a potty mouth. You can go
but they're hard. It's hard. Betty Davis was right. It's not for sissies, but I'm healthy. I have wonderful kids. Everybody's okay. Great grandkids. And I earned it. It's not that my whole life was like that. I earned it. I had to work hard on myself. I've worked hard. I raised my kids to be good human beings, and I'm proud of myself. I'm not patting, what is Churchill says, the definition of humility is an accurate assessment of your assets and liabilities.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that good? So
that's really good.
I'm very aware of my liabilities, but I'm allowing myself to have some assets now.
Good for you. I'm trying to learn that. I'm working on that right now in therapy.
It takes a while. It takes a while.
Self-esteem is difficult.
It doesn't mean you go around like, oh, good me. Me, but you're able to acknowledge that deeply flawed as we are as humans, if you're human, but that I know you're a kind person. I can see it in your eyes, and you're probably very kind. You're very friendly, very warm, very beautiful.
Thank you.
All those things. And
I can be that mean snake.
I'd love to know what your childhood was like.
Well, we're gonna go out for lunch. We have
if
to go.
You're a mean snake, it's because you've been cornered.
I'm a Scorpio. So yeah. So if somebody's if somebody's mean to me, I can give that shit right back.
Well, that's good.
I
Wow.
work on that all the time, including last night. I'm working on the blueprint for progress. I'm constantly working on trying to not be reactive and to stay on my side of the street and all of that. And it's
You're a
always
woman.
some,
It's hard for, if you're a sensitive woman and you're a feeling person.
it's
uh,
hard.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard.
I'm a reactor too now. I
That's
wasn't my
it, the
first.
reactor. You weren't?
No, I was the good, I was always, I don't know who that person was. She was a saint. I am no saint now.
So wait, you mentioned that you were in you have been in abusive relationships.
I've been married
Um,
more than once. My last marriage was abusive on his part.
and how did you get out of that?
He left me and I didn't.
He left you. Wow. Thank God. Good.
Yes, I do.
Lucky you.
He's now a shrink.
Wow.
Specializes in abusive relationships.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
oh, wow.
He was a very
Wow.
sweet guy and some very wonderful qualities too.
Mhm.
Obviously, I wouldn't have stayed with him for 15 years when we were together.
Oh, wow.
But I think he was, I'm not going to make excuses for him, but I think it was hard for him because he was not very, at that time, successful in his own life. And here he was with a woman who was very successful. I was at the peak of my career.
Wow.
So
I could not have been, yeah.
I understand, but I understood a little too much back then and should not have taken some of the stuff I took. But, it's okay.
Did you think that helped you not put up with that kind of, did that make you stronger?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
I set myself up as a victim in that marriage, and it was, that would never happen again. Never.
I love the fact that you're with a good man who appreciates and loves you.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. And I give myself credit for spotting it and allowing it. Because I told him when we first went out, I said, "You're really not my type." And he said, "What do you mean?"
You're nice.
I said, "Yeah, you have a nice car, you got a job, you smell good, you think I'm terrific. You're just not my type."
Oh my God, what we do to ourselves. So, okay. So I want to go back to the work. I didn't ask you enough Waltons questions the other day, and everybody was kind of like, ask more, ask more. So I did start to ask you this. Was it odd for you to be playing the mother when you were 31 and only 11 years older than Richard Thomas? Did you feel maternal? Did you just embody that?
I've always been older. When I was 17, people thought I was 30. I've always been, maybe because I'm the oldest of six, I'm the oldest daughter. And my mother kind of leaned on me because she was six kids and she was an only child, grew up in Europe, and she did some really marvelous things, but I think it took its toll on her. So there were times when, as a kid, I had to step up to the plate, and I did. So it wasn't that hard for me. And Richard, he's just such a great guy. I just loved him right away.
You have beautiful chemistry with him as well.
Yeah,
Aside from Ralph,
with Ralph and Richard, both beautiful. They were both just right there.
Did you guys have fun? Was it a fun set?
Oh yeah, especially with Richard. I mean, Ralph and I were very close for a number of reasons, but Richard was always cutting up and making everybody laugh, and it was annoying sometimes because there were times I just wanted to go home and be with my kids. Richard loved, and he had nothing pulling on him the way I did. So that when 2 or 3 hours would go by that nothing, where they were lighting or they were doing another scene and I had nothing to do, but I couldn't go home. Sometimes it was frustrating for me, but he and John Ritter, you know who John Ritter is?
I do. Oh,
the two of them together, they would just have us crying with laughter. They were wonderful.
And how is it now? How was it then? How do you learn lines? Do you have a trick? And is it something is it a chat? It would torture me. I'd be terrified. I don't audition because of that. I would be terrified. How do you do it? Do you have a trick?
No tricks. It's just brass assing. pardon my language, but
No, there's no apologies. We're on the internet. You can say whatever you want.
but you really, I'm trying to learn on Golden Pond now, and I've played it before. It
Ooh.
was 15, 20 years ago with Tom Bosley. I did it.
Oh, how
But
fabulous.
it's not just coming back. It's like I'm starting all over, and I'm sitting with the script, and it's hard work. When you're younger, it's easier because you rehearse and the lines just come. But
did you rehearse with the Waltons? Did you have
No,
rehearsal?
not really.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So how did you learn your lines? And you did so many soap operas. How did you learn daily line? Oh my God.
Well, one of the soap operas I did, I played a judge, and I had to have the script because I talked for pages. I don't know how those people do it, honest to God. But they have my utmost respect. They're good actors, and they learn these pages of dialogue overnight. I don't know how they do it. But I mean, how many lines did I have in the Waltons? Mostly it was time for bed, kids. More coffee, John? John Boy? Where's Elizabeth? Or whatever. I mean, I didn't have that many lines to learn. I wish I'd had more, actually, but I had to be in the scene. I had to be there ironing or doing. And I said to the producer, can't you just give me something to play? I'm an actress. And he said, we just want you we want your presence. The mother, they wanted my presence. So there were days where I did nothing. Ugh. Say, pass the sugar, please, or whatever. And that made me crazy.
Did your background growing up on a farm help you do things more? Sure. Oh, you have there's a little puppy back there.
Yeah. Oh, that's Penny. You wanted me to lift Penny?
Yes. TV. Come on.
My cat usually hangs out in here too. Come here, baby. Say hi.
Oh. Who's this?
She's about as old as I am in dog years.
Oh, what a sweetie.
She is a sweet dog. And this cat that we just got is so mean. She just lies there. And when Penny walks by, she just goes. Yeah, she can't so mean to you. But
so you grew up around animals, being on a farm, and did all of that help you be Olivia, just having had that background, do you think?
Sure, I think so. And then being a young wife, married to Peter, and being a homemaker, all of that.
And a mother.
It wasn't always kind of glamour, and it's, you start out and you're sort of at the back of the bus and you inch your way forward if you're lucky. I know so many good actors who never, quote, made it. I just was lucky. I had Ethel Weiner, and I don't know.
So what was that like for you, Michael, when your whole life changed, when all of a sudden you went from this anonymous stage actress to an Emmy-winning television star? How did your life change? Or did it?
Good. I mean, it wasn't that much in the beginning, but it seemed like a lot compared to theater salaries.
Sure.
And so I was grateful for that because of my kids. But I really didn't like being a celebrity. I didn't. Now I like it. I mean,
why didn't you like it back then? Was it an annoyance that people were bothering you?
To me, it seemed unreal, and now I can handle it better. And I found that people find that I'm just a perfect human being with all the flaws and all the good stuff. And my quote fans, some of them have become very good friends. And, it's not a big deal.
What is it like for you?
If I were a superstar and people were pulling my clothes off, most people are they either don't know who I am, or I'm not that recognizable, or when they do know who I am, they're just very sweet.
And is that a pleasure or an annoyance, or both?
It's a pleasure mostly. Once I was trying on underwear and eye magnets a long time ago when I was, just starting on the Waltons, and I suddenly looked up and there were people just, that was a little unpleasant, kind of embarrassing. Thank God they were all women, but still. But no, I have never, most of the people who come up are nice people, most of them. And there's an occasional jerk who talks about that, when you're in the elevator and they know who you are. And then they start talking about that show that they didn't like, that family.
What?
Yeah, I had that happen to me once, and
Oh,
I knew exactly what the person was doing. I didn't call the person on. I wish I had, you look back and think, I wish I'd said something, but I didn't. It was just,
how unkind.
it
What,
was
wow.
unkind. It was just unkind.
Hmm.
It was all right.
So we started to talk about, just before we finished last on Monday, about why you left, and you had started to say that you had gotten bored. I believe that was. And did you already have nurse, or did that happen after you decided to
It happened
leave?
after, and I'm so grateful that CBS somehow forgave me, because they don't like it when, I mean, I left contractually. I didn't break a contract or anything.
Right.
But still, they would have preferred if I'd stayed, and they were
Sure.
willing to pay a lot of money, but I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Hmm.
And so I left, and then Robert Halmy.
Had you banked a good amount of money so that you didn't have?
Absolutely not.
No. So,
No, no.
wow. Okay.
It wasn't that much money compared to what people make now. It wasn't all that much. It was, to me, it was a lot, but really, what, over the years, by the 5th year, we were able to renegotiate our contracts, and that was then, I was then making good money. But before that, really not.
Well, so that was really ballsy to walk away from it, to give that up.
Ballsy or stupid, which, but Robert Halmy, who produced Nurse, oddly enough, was a Secret Service in the Hungarian Secret Service.
Like your
My
father.
father, who was also in the Secret Service.
Wow.
So that was bizarre. And
Wow.
and he brought Nurse to me. And
wait, did your parents get to see your success?
Yeah, they did. My parents are waspy bohemians, and so
They didn't care.
big deal. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think they were proud, but they weren't proud. They were just, I think if anything, they were a little, they didn't want to make a big deal of it,
Did they get to see you win an Emmy Award?
They did.
Oh, come on.
They
Now
weren't
that
there,
had to,
but they were alive. Yeah, they were still alive. Yeah.
that had to. No?
I think my father probably was more so than my mother. My mother had her own issues.
Jay Leno said that when he was on the cover of Time magazine, he called his mother to tell her, and she said, "Oh, we don't get that here."
Exactly. Oh gosh, that's why we're in show business. I guess. No, my parents were very sophisticated, and so sophisticated that it wasn't a big deal. But I think secretly, I know my father was pleased that that I was making money and sending my kids to good schools and all of that. And I think he was proud.
I'm sure he
My
was.
mother, she had her own, she was tired. She was tired of raising kids. So anyway.
So how long after you walked away from the Waltons did Nurse happen? It was quick, right?
Yeah, right away. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, right away. And I'd still be doing it, but I think I had problems with the script.
Can you talk about that? Because I've heard you say that, and I was like, wow, you'd still be doing it. And I heard you say that you had some regrets in that regard. How was it working with Robert Reed?
I didn't handle it. Robert Reed was fine. He was great. And he knew how to handle things. I did not.
In what sense?
Well, what I should have done was say to Harvey Shepard, who was the head of CBS. I should have phoned him up personally and said, "I'm flying to LA. I'd like to take you to dinner and tell you about the problems we're having on the set." I didn't do that. That was the mature adult thing to have done. Are those earrings you've got on there?
They are earrings.
That's so fabulous.
They're crazy earrings.
Fabulous. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah, they're very silly. So what were the problems that you were having? What were the problems?
Scripts. She comes home from work and soaks in her hot tub in an apartment in Harlem.
What?
I mean, hello? There were no locks on the doors. I said, "This is New York City. You come home and you lock 4 locks and a bar across your door." I was finding little tiny things, but things that mattered to me in terms of being a real, a
Well, because you're an
believable-
actress from the theater where
well,
you take all that,
and, you know, it's set in, she has supposedly and then there were a scene, like one scene was, oh, she's going to have a hysterectomy. So she's thinking about killing herself. And she goes into her closet. This is literally a scene. Goes
Okay.
into her closet and looks at her satin shoes with the pom-poms on them and her negligee and thinks to herself, how awful that she'll never be able to wear these shoes again. I'm thinking, she hasn't even been diagnosed as to whether she's going to have this hysterectomy or not. She's a nurse. She doesn't have pom-poms on her satin bedroom slippers. So I'm sorry. Just little things like that, but they drove me crazy. I thought, you know, that's not like that. And of course, then on the other side, they're thinking this, can't she just do we're paying her good money. Can't she just do
and you won an Emmy Award for it.
I did. I know. I was so astonished and grateful, really. So,
so what happened?
To the show, it was they canceled it
Because
I pissed them off. And I understand now. I didn't handle it well. I really didn't.
What would you have done differently, Michael?
I would have flown to LA. I would have said, I need to take you out. Yeah, I'd like to take you out to dinner. I'd like to tell you, can we resolve some of these problems? I would have made him a party to what was happening rather than complaining. This can't happen. She can't do this and she wouldn't do that. So I alienated the writers and I alienated them. I shouldn't have mentioned names, but I alienated some people at CBS. And I understand. I do. I see their side of it now. But I was overwhelmed and exhausted, and the working conditions were awful. We were in my dressing room was a hospital room with nothing in it except a couch and a glass table from what looked like the Salvation Army with cockroaches on the walls.
Oh my.
14, 15, 19. One day was a 19-hour day. I mean, it was insane.
Wow.
It's very hard to light a hospital. It's not a studio where everything is kind of.
They did it in a real hospital?
Did it in a real metropolitan hospital in New York.
Wow.
So it was not, it was a very trying experience for me, and I didn't handle it as well as I could have. I should have gotten on a plane, come out, and I mean, that's what I would do now. Say, not that I'm ever I'm too old to do a series now, but I would handle it.
You just did a Netflix series.
Well,
things are different now.
Short one, but I don't want an old person to sign up for what could be a long-running series. But Netflix was fun. I had a great time doing that, and I'm sorry about Nurse. I mean, I wish I'd handled it in a more adult way. But
did it cost you anything afterwards? You worked at CBS
10 years.
For 10 years?
I didn't do a television show for 10 years after that. No.
What did you do in those 10 years? Did you do theater?
Thank God, yeah. But it was very painful at first. You know, I had to sell my apartment where I was living.
Wow.
It was a very hard time, yeah.
How did you get back into television?
Somebody asked me to do something. I guess time went by and people on the high ups change, and I've had some angels in my life. I don't even know really how I quote got back into television, but I'm not even sure I am. I just lucked out and got 10 episodes, a couple of episodes on the Monster. I don't know what they're calling it. That's just the working title,
right?
And I hope I get to keep working. I mean, it makes me feel good to work, doesn't it? You? I mean.
Well, I haven't done the kind of work I do this kind of thing. I haven't done that kind of thing in a while, but yeah, it's wonderful.
You have to be an artist to bring people out, to make them feel comfortable and get them talking. I mean, it's like you're my best friend now. That's not easy.
Well, I feel that we have to go out to lunch. I love that. I want to. So you did get back into it, and you did theater. What about now? Is theater still something for you now?
I'm going up to do on Golden Pond in Canada, which is about an hour north of Toronto. And I've worked for these guys before. They're from Stratford, Ontario, and they're wonderful guys. And I actually, while we were talking, my agent called, so we're still hashing out a few last minute details, but it's just a little town in northern Ontario, and a lovely little theater that they run beautifully. And I was gonna do it with Hal Linden.
Oh,
But yeah, I would have loved that. But unfortunately, he couldn't do it. And so I'm doing it with a really good Canadian actor who's also African Canadian. So it'll be an interesting twist on the play.
yes.
I'm not sure it's an accurate twist because they are both from New England. It's a very New England made,
Yes.
kind of play. But he's a wonderful actor, so it'll work.
So Second Acts was that way, was a story of, well, that was focused on it being interracially. Can you tell us a little bit about it? We started talking about that the other day and we didn't really get into it, but they knew each other. These two people knew each other as young, as children.
The line was, but it's not a full, it could be. I would love it if they'd make a movie of it, which we would be like the frame, the older people, but it would really deal with them as children and racism. And father tears her away from this kid, doesn't want her playing with this little boy. And then they reconnect in their later years and they have a love story because they'd loved each other all these years and they couldn't be together. So
it gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, Second Acts is sort of the last chapter of what could be a movie that would start with kids and young adults, and then finally we would be the older folks we wouldn't be the centerpiece of it, so to speak. But so who knows? But I think that's what Jerry Pass, who produced it, was hoping for, was that maybe it would get picked up.
Well, you did it during the pandemic, kind of, didn't it? I mean, it's the last few years, so maybe
you never know.
It could happen. So I think I know that you're an activist, and are you a bit of one for I read that somewhere about women's rights? No, I mean, how are you feeling about what's going on in the country now?
I don't know. I'm too old and too tired. I have my grandson living with me, and I have a very activist granddaughter. I'm not angry anymore. I used to be angry. I'm not angry anymore. I do believe, I have showed up for Black Lives Matter, and mostly because my grandchildren are Puerto Rican, their mother's Puerto Rican, and the most beautiful woman. She's gorgeous. And they are, and they're my grandchildren. I adore them. And I can't believe that anybody could ever do them harm. And I've always been that way as a kid. I never understood racism. I just didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I still don't. I really don't get it.
Were your parents liberal? Were they?
They were
CIA.
They were
yeah, CIA. Ooh.
But when we were in Washington during the uprisings and everything, my father said if a lot of high schools kids were going on strike, they wouldn't go to school because they were integrating the schools. My father said, if you walk out of that school, don't come home.
Oh, wow.
And I was offended because of course I wouldn't walk out. I mean, how could he even say that? Why would he even say that to me? But so, they certainly were not racist, my parents, but they were Republican. I don't know why people are so hard on Republicans.
Well,
he's a Republican too. I'm a liberal, but he's a Republican and he's a nice guy.
Well, one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch really fast, or a few bad apples.
We cancel each other out at the voting booth. I vote liberal. He votes Republican. So there you go.
So, Michael, we talked also very briefly, and I want to go out with this because I want to encourage you about that memoir you've been kind of dabbling with and thinking about. But
did you write yours? I think you wrote yours.
I did. And you know what mine is called? It's terrible. Mine is called Don't Jump, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, and My Fucking Mother.
Oh,
Oh, no.
would you send it to me? Have somebody send it to me?
I will send it to you. I'll have Harlan send it to you.
Okay. Oh, I'd love to read it. Oh my God.
But
I'll relate to every page in my own way.
yeah, it sounds that way. But I want to really encourage you. And I started to tell you the way that I did it, Michael, was literally in the rooms. I heard someone say that she did 5 minutes a day and it had changed her life. And it took me years. And I did other things for the 12-step programs. I wrote things for that and did other things, but it took me 13 years. But it's manageable if you just break it up into little baby chunks. And you don't have to do it alone either. And I'm happy to, I coach writers and I'm happy to,
really?
talk. Yes, I
can send
do.
you stuff.
I would be happy
Do you
to.
have time to read anything?
I'll read. I'll read for you. I'll read for you. I will.
I won't burden you, but I might send you
No,
something that I've written since we talked.
I would love
say
that.
But I'll just you inspire us.
It really is. I'm telling you, because once you sit down and you write 5 minutes, that 5 minutes often will turn into 10 or 15 or 20 or an hour. But sometimes it's just 5 minutes and that's okay. But it's being accountable. It's like I have to count my sober days. I also have to count my writing days. So I have like 7,300, I don't know. And I send an email every day to a woman from the rooms and tell her that I've written that day. And I still do it all these years later.
You're inspiring me. I was writing for a while and then I stopped. I was going to a writing class. I'm such a show up. I needed to have a place to go and show up.
No, that's really important. Getting support. I have writing workshops that I
would critique always kindly, and we would critique each other's work and tell them the term they used was, I fell out during that little portion, but I was really invested in this,
Well, that's another thing. I have a writing workshop on Zoom twice a month, and you're welcome to join that too.
I'd like us. Yeah.
And you give loving feedback, only supportive feedback.
Okay. Do you read your stuff on that?
Yeah, you read. Okay. Yeah, you read. You just read for a few minutes and then get loving feedback. Yeah, I will. It's Monday is the next one. But I really do want to encourage you, because you're humble about this, but you are so beloved. And you're so beloved because of the characters that you've played. But now I find that I love you more for who you are. You are so spectacular. You're just a beautiful woman. And I'm so grateful that I've had this opportunity to get to know you a little bit.
I feel like you're my best friend. So
well, I feel like it too.
I have a few, not too many. I have 1 or 2 best friends. So you're now my 3rd best friend.
I'm thrilled to be.
You're very good at drawing, making me feel completely comfortable and like I've known you all my life. That's wonderful.
Well, I feel that way too. And listen, I'm going to send you I don't have your email. I'm going to text you. You're going to send me your email. I'm going to text you, and then you can send me those pages that you wrote since we last talked. I'd love to read them. And I'm going to send you my book.
I'll do a short page so you won't be burdened, but I will.
Don't worry about burden. Send it to me. I got time. I'm going to read it. Because I adore you and I want to know more. And everybody wants to know more. So you need to do it. And I'm telling you, a girl named Michael, I like it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, never mind. We'll go there some other time.
Some other time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for doing this, Michael. I've enjoyed you so much. And have a wonderful evening. Say hi to that wonderful husband of yours. I adore that you're so happy.
Yeah. It took me a while. I had a few rehearsals, and thank you too.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful